Zig.
And I'm Hannah Hampton, and you're listening to HR After Hours.
Well, hello and welcome to HR After Hours podcast, the only HR podcast deemed hard to handle by pot-smoking Atlanta rock band, the Black Crowes. They were correct, and here we are. Hannah Hampton, my sister from another mister. How the hell are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Ready for spring to be sprung. You're always looking at different books and articles and ways to add to your HR toolkit. And I know that you briefly mentioned it in the last episode, but
Yeah.
it sounds like you really got something that is a recommended read.
I do. This book really resonated with me, and it's The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. And, it's not a new book by any means. It came out in 2018, but I finally read it this past year, and man, it took some time with it. And, I think I even spent some time on the internet reading articles, seeing what other people had to say about it. And it's definitely something I recommend. And I'd love to just talk a little bit about it, like what it's about and why it resonated with me so well.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, one of the things that we hear all the time is what are actions we can take to improve people practices. But bigger than that, everyone's favorite buzzword is culture.
Sure. And I will say, in my opinion, it's been a weird time for culture, because I would say 2.5, 3 years ago, it was a big buzzword. It's all about culture. And, when hiring, especially in tech, was so competitive, it was something that the companies really were touting as like, this is why you want to come work with us. But as we've seen over the past year, 2 years, there's been, kind of this weird swap in tech where there's been a ton of layoffs. And I think some companies are walking back a little bit on some of the culture, some of their benefits. So I feel like it's really an important time to still stress the importance of a great work culture and some little things that companies can do to build it. And I know it's so kind of corny, and it's I don't know, it's cliche to talk about when people are like, and it's not a foosball table. And I totally agree with that. It's not having a foosball table. It's not having massage chairs at the office, but culture is deeper than that. And this book really leans in or heavier to those important things.
Well, I think the big thing is, and what attracted you to this actually has tangible activities, solutions, take home items, instant action items. I think you said it breaks down into 3 key components.
Skills. So there's 3 skills that help companies create a great gelled culture, motivated culture. And number 1 is build safety. And we'll start with really high level, 30,000 feet. Number 1, build safety. Number 2, share vulnerability. And 3, establish purpose. That's it. Those are the 3 skills, which one of the things I love about the book is it's simple. It's not like, okay, you need to do these 15 things to have a great culture. It's 3 skills, 3 ideas that you as a company should build onto your teams to improve your culture. So now, because it's so high level, 30,000 feet, my favorite part of this book, they talk about real life examples of these key ideas working at companies. And they name the companies. It's not just like, where they change the names of the people and whatnot to protect them. The book legitimately said, okay, here's the company that does it. Here's the people who are involved, and here's the success. So it's really cool where it gives you actual examples. The last part of each section, they break down, they call them ideas for action. So Daniel Coyle puts these ideas for action, and it's just simple. Simple is I guess is a complicated word, but it's a simple ideas that you can implement to build these skills. So that is what is so great of the book. Let me give you a couple examples, and we can talk a little bit about it. Number 1 is building safety. And what does that mean? Well, that means creating a environment where people feel safe to bring up ideas, feel safe to admit mistakes, feel safe to bring up when something's going wrong, all of those pieces, which I feel like, duh, that's so obvious. But what are some of the things that you can do? Number one, I love, one of the skills that I absolutely love is over communicate your listening. So really listen to understand. We have all worked with that person who likes to interrupt you, who likes to listen so that they can just respond and tell you why they think that their response is good. It's all about listening to understand first, really truly understanding. I love that. I don't know if that's something that you've had experience with.
Well, we've talked a lot about communication and,
Mhm.
making progress. Having a conversation involves listening, but like you said, listening to understand, not sitting there and letting them talk while in your head you're composing the perfect either counterpoint or supporting statement for what your thought is. That's what a discussion is. A discussion
Mhm.
is, if you're really listening to someone, there should be some sort of piece in your response that shows that, and it should shift or have an impact. You shouldn't be able to say the same thing that was already in your head after someone else has laid down their point or proposed something to you. If it doesn't impact what's coming out of your mouth, you didn't listen in the first.
Mhm. Yep, yep. Another idea, and I think you'll appreciate this, is be painstaking in the hiring process. Like, really have a good, comprehensive hiring practice in place. And I think we have all worked with that hiring manager who just taking suggestions with a grain of salt, not being involved, not really paying attention. Just, I think we've all worked in situations where sometimes it's just the warm body. Like, I'll take a warm body, and it just does not create a great experience. So be painstaking in the hiring process.
And I think that supports even the last one as far as listening. Yeah, well, it supports the same thing, and as far as the listening
Yeah.
to understand, if you're truly painstaking in the
Mhm.
hiring process, hiring is a team activity. It's a collaboration. So again, you have to post interview, have conversations. If the hiring manager is like, this isn't the right person, at the very least, the hiring manager and the HR manager or recruiter, they should be having a Q&A back and forth post interview, because if I didn't put the right person in front of you, I need to listen to why the person I thought was the right one was not. Otherwise,
Mhm.
I'm going to just put another version of that last candidate in front of you, whether it's a guy versus a girl or background as far as education or whatever. It's still going to be some sort of variable of the first candidate if there's not a collaborated process where there's listening that aligns with number one.
Yeah. And here's one more that I'm going to share from this. And again, I'm picking and choosing ones that I thought were really great for us to discuss. Ensure everyone has a voice, or make sure everyone has a voice. Now, there was a couple of examples in the book. One that I'd like to really just to share is, it's a fascinating topic, and I feel like it's timely, as kind of when we're recording this, there's been a lot on the news about Boeing and issues with Boeing's production of airlines and safety. So at Toyota, they have this cord that employees can use to stop the full assembly line if they spot a problem. So everyone in the company is empowered to stop the assembly line if something's going wrong. So I feel like that is really, especially when you are working in an industry, automobiles, airlines or building airplanes, where the safety of human beings is in the palm of your hand. Building a car wrong that can create safety issues, or building a plane wrong where the door flies off. The empowering anybody to comfortably stop the assembly line where it's encouraged. Please stop the assembly line if there's a problem, so that we can come in and we can fix it. That's brilliant. It's really, kind of a stitch in time saves nine. Getting ahead of problems is a brilliant thing to do, and empowering people to speak up and not be afraid. I feel like I saw a hidden camera thing where they're asking Boeing production workers if they'd fly in a Boeing airplane, and most of them said, "Oh, hell no." And that scared the crap out of me. So I love this idea of making sure that everyone has a voice.
I think that goes back to a good culture is a collaborative culture as well, and
Mhm.
empowering your people. The rebuttal, if someone's like, Well, not everyone understands that they all have different skill sets. I still believe that if you are painstaking in the hiring process, you're investing in this
Mhm.
individual. They should have a voice. It is that whole thing of build safety to me is creating a accepting collaborative environment where it's okay to be wrong every once in a while. And if enough people are, involved in these decisions and discussions, they're going to catch when something or someone's wrong, hopefully make that a growing opportunity, a
Mhm.
personal and professional growth opportunity for the individual instead of an opportunity to ridicule them. Because that's what it's about, right? The safety is about feeling comfortable
Yes.
and being able to really contribute because of that, which in turn creates, and improves productivity. So it
Okay.
all it
Yeah.
all makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Now, I know I said I was going to do the last one in the section, but I've got one more because I love this because it kind of goes against things that many managers and leaders are taught. And it's avoid giving sandwich feedback. And I'm just going to read this from the book because I think that they do a great job of explaining it. In many organizations, leaders tend to deliver feedback using the traditional sandwich method. You talk about a positive, then address an area that needs improvement, and then finish with a positive. This makes sense in theory, but in practice, it often leads to confusion as people tend to focus on either entirely the positive or entirely on the negative. So they're missing out on a lot of the feedback if you do the sandwich method. And I love this one because I was like, oh my gosh, that really makes sense. But I know I was taught to do that, and I feel like I told other people to do the same. So I've walked back on that one quite a bit because it does make sense. Like if you get somebody who tends to focus on how they make mistakes, maybe a perfectionist, they're only going to focus on the negative piece, which, okay, maybe that's what you need them to work on. But then you're losing that impact of the positive, the areas that they're excelling in. So I think it's brilliant to separate those two. To like go further in the book, it said that in the cultures I visited, I didn't see many feedback sandwiches. Instead, I saw them separate the two into different processes. They handled negatives through dialogue, first by asking if a person wants feedback, then having a learning focused two-way conversation about the needed growth. They handled positives through ultra clear bursts of recognition and praise. So I love that. Keeping those two very separate so that it's not confusing. People aren't hanging on to only a snippet of it. That's again about creating clarity. And it's like, here's exactly what you need to work on. We're only going to talk about that. Are you, Mick, are you a sandwich feedback person? Is this something that you've done in the past? This one was a shocking one for me. What are your thoughts?
The old compliment sandwich is the old business 101 model. Early in my career, absolutely, I used that. And it actually improved me as a leader in the early stages of being in a leadership role. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really part of that, just that growing process to learn not to just jump on the negative. So I think that's where it's good in your early training. What you're saying as far as an overall culture, I see what you're saying. I think for me, the way I would want to implement that is praise would be public
Mm-hmm.
and coaching opportunities would be private.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So the next section is share vulnerability. And this is something that I've always stressed as important. Not being afraid to show people that you're a human too. I think a lot of times, especially new managers, will focus on I need to be perfect. I need to look perfect. People need to see me as doing everything perfect. And that actually is bad. It's really important to be able to admit to screwing things up, admit to being human. I made a mistake. Those are all super duper, I think, important things for a leader to understand is that, hey, we are a human being. So I like the first habit. It's like make sure the leader is vulnerable first and often. So you're the one that's saying, I screwed up. You're the one who's saying, I'm nervous. I did that wrong or, I made a bad mistake. This one it's simple, but so impactful. What are your thoughts about vulnerability in general and being vulnerable for your team?
I think the most successful cultures do discuss progress versus
Mhm.
perfection.
Yes.
Perfection is an unobtainable goal. Progress is an extremely attainable goal. And as long as
Mhm.
we're always growing and moving forward, I do think that's a great leadership method, is always saying, hey, I signed off on this and it didn't work. At the very least,
Yeah.
that as a leader, it shouldn't be, oh, I knew we shouldn't have done this, or, oh, I fought on this one, but hey, I listened to other people and this is what happened. That sidestepping a responsibility, that passing the buck, that's signs of a terrible leader. We've all worked with that person or seen that person in action. Never an inspiring leader. An inspiring leader says, the buck always stops here because I'm the one that made the decision to support this action item.
Mhm.
Or, hey, I thought it was going to work. I'm as surprised as you are. So now we know let's sit down as a team and discuss what we learned from this failure. And that is the ongoing progress versus perfection model that I think
Mhm.
is one of the strongest leadership models.
Now, the next section that they absolutely love is they talk a little bit about Pixar, which we all know and love Pixar. They have made some amazing movies. I think everyone knows a Pixar movie. One of the things that they do, and I'm going to talk about what they do before I talk about the skills, is they create a group. It's called the Brain Trust. Basically, the Brain Trust goes in and picks apart picks apart the movie. And basically what they talked about in the book is the first iteration or first iteration of the movie is usually terrible. And the Brain Trust comes in and and provides feedback and helps turn this into an amazing movie. Some of the skills are aim for candor, avoid brutal honesty. So it said giving honest feedback is tricky because it can easily result in people feeling hurt or demoralized. One useful distinction made most clearly at Pixar is to aim for candor, avoid brutal honesty. By aiming for candor, feedback that is smaller, more targeted, and less personal, less judgmental, and equally impactful, it's easier to maintain a sense of safety and belonging in the group. I think it's great. And then another one was embrace the discomfort. So being okay with being uncomfortable, getting that kind of difficult feedback and being okay with being told like, hey, this idea stinks, but that's okay. Those are huge challenges for human beings because we don't want to be called out. We don't want to be told our ideas stink. We don't like to look like we're bad at our jobs. But sometimes it's really important to get that feedback, to understand that why, the feedback is there to help us be better. It's not to hurt you personally. And that's the thing I try to talk to people about when they have gotten some tough feedback. It's hurtful. And it's like, remember, this is not about you personally. It's about the project. It's about this work. And sometimes it's hard to separate those two, but it's so important in order to grow and be better is accepting that feedback and being comfortable enough to be okay with it and not feel like, well, my job's in jeopardy or people don't like me anymore. So all of those things I think are just brilliant. I think anybody would love to work in a space where it's okay to make mistakes, to fuck up, and still be loved and still know that you're great at your job. So I think I love this section. What are your initial thoughts? Do you even like Pixar movies?
It's kind of funny that some of the things that seem like they should be common sense and common practices versus enlightening reading is a little sad.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how you get things out there, and this is how, good ideas become great practices. Got to hear about it. You've got to hear that it works. And I just think everything should always be approached to as a learning opportunity. I mean, I've worked for companies where at the beginning of meetings, they put bullseyes up on the screen and put people's names in on people that were in the red, that were in danger because of their previous failures. And it sucks the wind out of the sails of everyone, not only those being thrown into the unwanted light, for that to be public fodder. The leadership by terrorism approach, or the
Mm-hmm.
my way or the highway approach, they're just not impactful. And that's where you see companies that still have just revolving doors. What they think is upgrading their talent is typically looking for yet another person that they're going to improperly lead and set up for failure. This is
Mhm.
all very, like I said, what should seem like basic stuff, but I love the way they put it out there and they give the examples. And hopefully this is giving people ideas of things they can implement immediately at work.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Please know that, again, I'm just picking and choosing some that resonate with me. There's so much more that goes into this book. So please don't take this as, oh my gosh, there's like 7 things. There are many ideas, but I'm just skipping over ones that I think are interesting for our conversation. But I'm going to jump into skill 3, and that's establish purpose. Like, people want to live a purpose-driven life. There's people want to have a purpose for being out there. So extremely important idea is establishing a purpose. So one of the first ones is, it says, name and rank your priorities. In order to move towards a target, you must first have a target. Listing your priorities, understanding what's important. You'll ask somebody at work, like, what is your number one priority? Sometimes people don't know that or don't understand. As a leader, you really want to make sure that you have a very, very clear vision for your company. So name and rank your priorities. Is that so? I feel like that sounds like something that you already do, Mick. Am I right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's establishing a purpose, which is the
Mm-hmm.
actual name of it. So, no, I mean, that's what great leaders do. That's what great companies do. It's having that mission and vision, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's really making it more than, do we have a catchy mission and vision? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the mission and vision was really more inspiration versus the actual priority purpose of the company. That's not what the current employee or worker or team member wants any longer. They want to be a part of a
Yeah.
company where they feel like they share those priorities and the vision of the company and the mission of what it's trying to accomplish, that is something that they're on board with. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it definitely is something that should be the one of the first building blocks of a company. Like, let's say maybe you're an independent, that you are the company. If you're the sole employee or it's you and a partner, when it's time to expand, that's when you need to really be able to have the verbalization and the physical quantification of what you've done to this point, to have those people that share the same passion. Because that's where you see the biggest drop, right? Is you see these, I hate using him as an example, but just to do it very quick, Elon Musk, someone
Mm-hmm.
who has so much going on in that brain of his, but he doesn't know how to externalize it into motivating mission and visions to his team, and is often misunderstood or heavily criticized, because typically what he thinks he's putting together is an inspirational 3 a.m. company wide email really is read as, we need to work harder and more hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an established purpose. That is something that drives you as the individual. That's not how you're going to get the troops to follow.
Here's the next section, which I think I'm going to go through all the ideas for action for this section because it's smaller, but they're really impactful. Be 10 times as clear about your priorities as you think you should be. And it says in here, leaders are inherently biased to presume that everyone in the group sees things as they do, when in fact they don't. So I think that Elon Musk example was good, because him sending a 2 a.m. Email assumes like everyone is experiencing their life and seeing things from his perspective, but that's not the case. Really over communicating priorities. Now listen to this. A while back, Inc. magazine asked executives at 600 companies to estimate the percentage of their workforce who could name the company's top 3 priorities. The executives predicted that 64% would be able to name them. When Inc. then asked employees to name their priorities, only 2% could do so. So that is a huge disconnect. And again, I feel it's all about creating clarity, like setting very clear expectations. Are you shocked by that or not?
Not shocked at all.
Nope.
It sounds very normal. It's losing
Mm-hmm.
touch with your people.
Yeah, yeah. Really go out there and have conversations, ask questions. Again, don't be afraid to repeat yourself or just be overly clear about expectations. This next one I think is really interesting. Figure out where your group aims for proficiency and where it aims for creativity. So skills of proficiently are about doing a task the same way every single time. Thinking about anything that's highly repetitive, things in nature. Now, creative skills, on the other hand, are about empowering a group to do the hard work of building something that has never existed before. Understanding where those separate things lie, because if you're looking for proficiency, I think there's different ways, different skills you need, different ways to motivate people. And then creativity, that's one of those places where they say in here, make it safe to fail and to give feedback. Understand your team, understand and create that autonomy for them. And I think that's brilliant, because I think it's really easy for managers to manage people in the same way and manage for that proficiency. If you're working in a space where creativity is needed, and I think in like where I work, I am in, I work for a tech company. I'm working with software developers. You need to remember that it's an art. There's creativity that has to happen with building that code sometimes, especially when you're building a newer product or building upon a product. You need that time to be creative. You need that time to be able to make mistakes. And it's really easy to just focus on more, create, proficiency. I need it done now. I needed it done yesterday. So I think really giving people space, especially when it's in that area of creativity.
I agree. It's verbalizing and communicating the differences, that this is, hey, team,
Mhm.
we're going to work on a collaborative, creative project here together. We'll probably throw out some loony ideas, and I'm going to start the meeting by saying that there's no idea too crazy. And if
Mhm.
we don't use it, that's okay. We've got to throw things out there to get to the point of where we're on track to what were our desired result. Let's throw everything against the wall at first, and then we'll determine when we're going that direction and pick something. Going to be silly, but let's get the creative juices flowing. Let's start it. I don't care what
Mhm.
it is. Nothing's too crazy to start. Let's go. Then it's time to start reeling in, because you're heading towards the right direction. That's what you do. But you've got to tell people that goes back to the first step of that safety, right? I've got to make sure that we're all accepting of the fact that in a brainstorming process, we're only going to be able to use probably 10% of the first part of this meeting. So let's
Mhm.
throw everything out there and see what we can build on and go.
Now this next one, I think some people, I think I even initially kind of rolled my eyes at it, but it totally makes sense. And it's embrace the use of catchphrases. And I think we can all go back to Office Space and think about, so, think about the posters they had on the wall and think, oh, come on. But here's the thing, and I'm going to read this from the book. When you look at successful groups, a lot of their internal language features catchphrases, which often sound obvious, rah-rah, or corny. Many of us instinctively dismiss them as cultish jargon. But this is a mistake. Though their occasionally cheesy obviousness is not a bug, it's a feature. So it's their clarity, grating to the outsider's ear is precisely what helps them function. So keeping in mind those purposes. And one of them, and because I'm going to talk about Zappos in just a second, is create fun and a little weirdness. That was their company culture, and that is what they wanted to do. So as much as I agree, like I at first was like, oh, come on, this is so cheesy. I've been there where we've had sayings, but they're very clear reminders of company purpose and the way that you should act towards your customers and towards each other. Did you initially find it kind of cheesy like me? Do you still find it cheesy? What are your thoughts?
No, it's funny as I tell people all the time that usually when I first encounter a
Mhm.
phrase that, one of those little isms that are corny, that at first I usually say I don't like them, but then when I process it to something that can be utilized as motivational, then all of a sudden I think it's the most impactful, insightful saying in the
Yeah.
world. One of mine, and I've said it at least two times during a podcast, is progress versus perfection.
Mhm.
That's what I use with my team to, say, hey, we made mistakes, but as long as we're moving forward, that's what matters. As long as we're growing, as long as we're building this company, this is what matters. I can think of a couple that obviously were impactful because I still remember them. I remember working in a very popular sports bar, and the one thing all the leaders would say to the team when things got really busy and crazy, come on, people, it's just burgers and beer, take it off. And it worked. You
Exactly.
know, it
It's
got everyone
true.
to relax when they were getting a little too. So, I mean, that's a phrase, and I don't even adapt it to the environment. When I'm with the team that's working on something and people start getting frustrated, I'll still say, "Come on, people, it's just burgers and beer." And they'll look
Right.
at me and I'll tell them the whole story of the saying, and then they'll start saying it later because it's
I
just,
love it.
hey,
It's
we're
just
just caught
burgers
up
and
in the
beer.
activity and the momentum.
Mhm.
This is just the moment. We're going to get through it and everything's going to be where we want it to be.
And I love it because that kind of also relates to the next one. I've got two left, so this is one of two. Measure what really matters. And now we live in a world where it's that analysis paralysis, where we're measuring everything. But it's all about measuring what's important. And I love this example. And I told you I was going to bring back Zappos again. A good example happened in the early days of Zappos when Tony Shea noticed that a call center workers were measured by the number of calls they handled per hour. He realized that this traditional measure was at odds with the group's purpose and that it was driving unwanted behavior. So it was haste and brevity for starters. So he banished that metric and replaced it with personal emotional connectors, or creating a bond outside of the conversation about the product. It's impossible, of course, to measure PECs precisely, but the goal here is not precision. It's to create awareness and alignment and to direct behaviors towards the group mission. So they were all about creating that amazing customer experience. And I know I like shopping at Zappos because I've had some great customer service experiences myself, because they want to make things right. And it's not about getting you off the call because I have to make sure I'm taking 20 calls in an hour or whatever it might be. It's all about correcting the situation. And that is what he wanted from his company. So I think that's really great. It's really focusing on the things that matter and not the things that just, hey, we can measure this, so let's measure it. We've all worked in situations where we've had metrics we had to meet. And you would see people doing bad things to meet those metrics because they knew like their bonuses were on the line. And I feel like the customer would be hurt by those because they're focused on the wrong things. Obviously, if you're wanting to please your customers, what matters is making that experience right.
Yeah, I agree. We talk about recruiting all the time, and this could be
Mm-hmm.
staffing or recruiting, however you look at it. You know, you see people that get caught up in the number of candidates they put in front of a client or their boss or their hiring manager. Sometimes you'll have the hiring manager complain, because HR and recruiting, it's always our fault. And one of the things is when, someone's not getting hired, the first thing they're doing is they're like, well, how many candidates did they put in front of you? That shouldn't be the question. It should be, how many people have you spoken to that
Mm-hmm.
were a viable candidate? Because I can always see when a recruiter is chasing the number of submissions, the amount of candidates that they're putting in front of a hiring manager, because they think that shows how busy they've been that week. And if you're putting 6 candidates a week in front of a hiring manager, you're not getting them to the next round, that's terrible. That means,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to question, who are you interviewing? What traits are you looking for? I would rather you tell me, hey, I was not able to find the right person yet. These are the avenues of action I'm taking. The metric of the number of candidates submitted is not important. It has nothing to do with getting the position filled. Just like, yeah, you can talk to 20 dissatisfied customers in an hour in a call center, and if all 20 of them get off the phone with you dissatisfied, that
Mm-hmm.
that's a terrible result. You can have all the action or activity going, but until it equals accomplishment, it doesn't matter. So if you're just tracking action and activity and not the achievement or the accomplishment, you're tracking the wrong metric. And that has nothing to
Exactly.
do with the purpose of that role.
Mm-hmm. Now, this rolls into the last one, which I think is great. And I think you'll have some great things to say about it. But the last idea for action is focus on bar setting behaviors. So one challenge of building purpose is to translate abstract ideas, so your values and mission, into concrete terms. One way successful groups do this is by spotlighting a single task and using it to define their identity and set the bar for good expectations. So I'm going to give you an example. Pixar puts hundreds of hours of effort into the technical and storytelling quality of the short, standalone animated films that run before each of its features. The shorts lose money, but they pay off in other ways. They invest in the studio's young talent, create experimentation, and most important, showcase the attention and excellence they channel into every task. In other words, these small efforts are powerful because they transmit, amplify, and celebrate the purpose of the whole group. So you think about those little things, going back to the restaurant industry, having your table set in a very consistent, specific way and holding people to that expectation. Like everything has to be on the table where it's supposed to be. All of those little habits that set the bar. This helps people understand what's important in your purpose and, certainly focusing on how these help outcomes. What do you think about that? Focusing on the bar setting behaviors.
Well, yeah, it's again having an influence on everyone, making sure they understand the established purpose, or that people aren't looking for results in the wrong area, or just creating a culture of negativity, of lack of desired results, or wasting time. If you're creating a purpose-driven culture, everyone needs to know what the purpose is and be a part of determining the best way to get there, and then get there.
Yep. Oh, I love that. And that is a great way to to wrap it all up with a bow on top. Those were some pieces of the book. I highly recommend people checking out this book. Again, it's The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, and it's The Culture Code, The Secrets of Highly Successful Groups. I'm not going to say every single thing in the book is going to work for you, but I will say it was a great read. It's something I've thought about once I put the book down, which to me is something a great book does. It just, you're left thinking about it. I think this is something that every leader should check out, because if you've got a great company culture, you could just make it even better with some of these tips. Or maybe it's confirming like, hey, we do all these things and that's why we're a great place to work. So these are the things we want to continue to do, because let's get real. We live in a world where companies are always trying to change. Some of them are like, hey, we got to keep our shareholders happy, so let's do it and to the benefit of them and not to the company. And all of a sudden their culture sucks. And then all of a sudden they're going out of business. So it's reminding about the important things that you need to do as a company leader to either make a great culture, keep your culture great, so that people want to continue to come work for your company. Because if you don't have great workers, you don't have people who believe in your purpose, who don't believe in your mission and values, your company is going to go down the drain. I think we've seen it happen. We've seen brands that were once great that are no longer great again. And it's because company has brought in really crappy leadership. They make terrible decisions. They don't treat their people the right way. And it's sad, especially if it's a beloved brand, that if everything starts going, downhill, you're going to lose customers and all of a sudden you're going to lose your business.
I agree. This is a great tie-in to our last episode, which was talking about that decrease in engagement. And here's a very viable and applicable situation here, where it's not us just saying, here's the problem. It's, hey, here is a solution. Yes, the Culture Code published in 2018. So yeah, we're getting to it a little late. I think it's probably even more vital and applicable to what we're seeing in the workforce today than it was in 2018. So, and these are things that are just going to become more and more important over time. Better late than never on this book, and definitely what I would classify a book to add to your toolkit. Hanna Hampton, always a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to really take a deep dive into the Culture Code, and you have a successful day.
You too.